Forget what you think you know about Ferrari's steering system, because Hamilton didn't just question it, he decoded it. From the moment he stepped into the SF25, Hamilton felt it. Not noise, not balance, delay. Between input and action, between intention and execution. He'd seen it before, in underdeveloped systems, cars that couldn't respond fast enough to genius-level instinct. But this time, the delay wasn't mechanical, it was ideological. Ferrari's steering architecture, refined over years around Leclerc's driving style, runs on what insiders call progressive tolerance, smooth ramp-up, damped resistance, a feel that encourages patience, not precision. "It doesn't speak to you," Hamilton said after Silverstone. "Not fast enough." This wasn't a complaint, it was a verdict. Because behind that delay, Hamilton didn't just feel lag. He felt the fingerprints of a team still designing cars for control, not for the driver. And for the first time in years, someone inside Maranello called it out. It wasn't supposed to be a steering test, but the data didn't lie. And the myth cracked wide open. At Mugello, Ferrari quietly ran its new rear suspension on the SF25. Officially, it was about ride height and cornering balance. Unofficially, Hamilton's steering feedback triggered something deeper. Engineers loaded two calibration profiles into the simulator, the Leclerc baseline and the newly proposed Hamilton override. What emerged on the screens was undeniable. Leclerc's input curve, smooth, slower onset, higher torque retention past the apex. Hamilton's, immediate bite, linear feedback, faster correction times through mid-speed sequences, especially in Spa's simulated S2. "We didn't expect that much delta," one engineer admitted, especially not under controlled grip. But the real shock came later. Someone extracted the torque trace and passed it to a trusted insider. It spread quietly through the garage, and when they overlaid Leclerc's smooth map with Hamilton's raw profile, only one was efficient. The spikier line, once dismissed as aggressive, was cleaner, and it didn't belong to Leclerc. Hamilton didn't need to raise his voice, he just opened a graph and forced Ferrari to look at what they'd refused to admit. No cameras, no press team, just four people in a room. Hamilton, his performance engineer, a senior systems lead, and Fred Vasseur. The telemetry was already loaded, no preamble, no pleasantries. Hamilton highlighted the same section of trace that had circulated internally, input torque versus steering response lag. Then came the question, would you race with a delay between your decision and the car's reaction? No one spoke. What followed wasn't a demand, it was insurance. If I adapt to a flaw and we lose, that's on you. In that moment, Ferrari's leadership understood what was really happening. Hamilton wasn't asking for a steering update. He was setting conditions. This was contractual leverage cloaked in data. He was triggering a clause not written in words, but in performance thresholds. Vasseur didn't argue. He didn't explain. He just nodded once and said, "We'll run it." That was the shift, not in hardware, in authority. And the ripple would hit Leclerc's garage within hours. He felt it before he heard it, because in Maranello, nothing stays secret for long. Even before the confirmation reached his side of the garage, Leclerc knew the energy had shifted. Engineers who once echoed his preferences were suddenly neutral. His race engineer? Careful, reserved. The message came in one line. Hamilton's override goes live for FP1. Leclerc didn't protest, he didn't call a meeting, but he made one immediate request, an extended simulator session that night, not to prepare, to monitor. He quietly asked for access to telemetry from Hamilton's new steering spec, not officially, just logged, observed. He doubled his sim laps, no changes, just observation, said one staffer. It wasn't setup prep, it was surveillance. Because Leclerc knew what was really at stake. Not just control over setup, but identity. For years, the car had moved to his rhythm. Now, someone else's heartbeat was guiding its feedback. And for the first time, Ferrari had two philosophies under one roof, and only one would survive the season. Most observers will see two drivers casually inspecting corners, but for those watching closely at Spa, one sentence could redefine the balance inside Ferrari. Spa-Francorchamps awaits on July 27th. And when the drivers step out for their traditional track walk, it won't just be about apex angles or elevation gradients. Insiders are already anticipating a moment. A quiet phrase, a subtle signal. Hamilton has a way of delivering truths not through interviews, but through presence, through timing. You feel it under your hands, or you don't. That's the line he's expected to drop. Not for Leclerc, but near him. A phrase loaded with intention. Not about the asphalt, but about steering feel, about control. If it happens, it won't be a conversation, it'll be a warning. You've had your setup, now I get mine. and as they finish their walk in silence, those within Ferrari will know. Spa won't just be another race, it will be a referendum on who owns the future feedback loop of the SF25. What matters at Spa won't be lap times, it will be reaction times. When FP1 begins on July 27th, all eyes will be on the steering. Not just from the outside, but inside the Ferrari garage. Because if Hamilton's feedback triggers immediate adjustments, without debate, without delay, that will signal a silent shift. The team will be responding to him as a primary input source, not just another driver. If the changes go through unfiltered, that's when we'll know, said one Maranello insider. He's not just part of the loop, he is the loop. Meanwhile, if Leclerc's requests get processed slower or filtered through more voices, it won't be accidental. It'll mean Ferrari is beginning to pivot, quietly but deliberately. Spa won't crown that shift, but it will expose it. In the cockpit, 2 cars. On the monitors, 2 philosophies. And in the pit lane, 1 priority. They'll both hit the track, but only one dataset might survive the season. When Spa begins, the most important visuals won't be on camera. They'll be buried in telemetry overlays inside the Ferrari garage, 2 steering maps side by side. Leclerc's smooth ramp up, slight delay, conservative torque release through fast corners. Hamilton's aggressive initial bite, minimal correction, sharper mid-corner response. If Hamilton's map produces better sector deltas, said one Ferrari engineer, then it's not preference anymore, it's performance. This is what the team fears, not a battle of opinions, a battle of numbers, because if Spa proves Hamilton's override unlocks not just feel, but measurable speed and consistency, Ferrari can't hide behind equal cars anymore. And inside the garage, that moment is already anticipated. Contingency protocols are being written. Alternate mapping strategies quietly sketched by Adam's group. Not for this race, but what comes after. If the data favors Hamilton, Ferrari will face a choice. Not just who to listen to, but who to build around. What happens at Spa won't stay in Belgium. It could fracture Ferrari's identity for seasons to come. July 27 isn't just a race date, it's a pressure point. If Hamilton's steering override delivers lap time, consistency, and confidence, it forces Ferrari into confrontation with its own philosophy. Because this isn't about a tweak, it's a redesign of power. If Hamilton's feedback proves right in live conditions, every technical excuse used to delay his preferences collapses, not because of politics, because of proof. One senior mechanic put it simply, if his line works, everything built around Leclerc gets questioned. That's not feedback, that's structural disruption. Inside Maranello, 2 futures sit in parallel, one defined by heritage, Leclerc's feel, progressive damping, smooth predictability. The other, Hamilton's demand for linear response, torque immediacy, and instinct-driven engineering. Spa could force Fred Vasseur to decide not just who drives faster, but who Ferrari dares to follow. If you believe steering isn't just hardware, it's hierarchy, then what happens next isn't a race, it's a coup.